Hi, I'm Luke McIntosh, and in this lesson you're going to learn all about chord scales and how you can use them to take any song you know and play it in any key that you like. Now tell me if you've ever been in one of these situations. You're rehearsing for a gig or some other kind of performance and you're playing along the song, you're sounding good, and then all of a sudden someone says, "Can we change the key?" And then you begrudgingly have to go back and learn the song again in a different key. Or maybe you're jamming with some people and they say, "Hey, do you know such and such a song?" And you do know that song, but it's in a different key than they know it in. Or, this one's my favourite, you're playing with a guitar player and they decide that for whatever reason they're going to bust out their capo and change the key that way. Now, all of these situations are really quite common. I've dealt with these hundreds of times before. I'm sure you have as well at some point. People want to change the key for any number of reasons. Maybe the key doesn't suit the singer's voice. Maybe the guitarist is tuned down a half step. Maybe someone already knows a song in the wrong key and they don't want to change. Would it not be easier if you could learn a song just one time and then never have to worry about learning it in a different key? Well, that is exactly what this lesson is all about. You see, once you have a good understanding and a deep understanding of your keys and what you can expect to see in every key, it becomes very easy to not think in terms of individual chords, but the relationship between the chords and how they relate together to the key. Now, this is the important part, the relationship between all the chords and how they relate to the home bass, the home key. And once you learn that, it becomes super easy. And that's exactly what we want to do in this lesson. So let's dig in. Now, each key is built on a scale, either a major scale or a minor scale, an Ionian or an Aeolian. We'll talk about these a little bit more in depth in the next module. Just know for right now that you've got major scales and minor scales. If you're building your key from a major scale, it's obviously going to be a major key. If you build your scale from a minor scale, build your key from a minor scale, then it's obviously going to be a minor key. This bit's fairly obvious, right? It makes perfect sense. What might not be quite so obvious is that every key has a set of chords that's associated with it. Check this out. If we have a major scale, let's use C major, keep things very simple. That's our major scale. They are the notes in the key of C major. As you know, the major scale and major keys are very closely related. But what happens when you start building chords from all of these notes using notes from within the scale? Do you understand what I mean? Now, you know how to make chords. You know that they're just thirds stacked on top of each other. And to do that, it's very easy. So if we start from C, and we build a chord from C, we just go up in thirds. So in this case, we go C, we skip the D, go to an E, skip the F, go to a G. We've got a C major chord. C, E, and G. Now, next note in the C major scale is D. So we'll do the same thing built from D. So we'll go D, skip the E, play the F, skip the G, play the A. So we've got D, F, and A. So far I've got C major, D minor. Yep. If we keep following the process here, we come up to E, we skip the F, play the G, skip the A, play the B. E, G, B. That's an E minor chord. So we've got C, D, E. C major, D minor, E minor. If we keep following this process, we get F major, G major, A minor, B diminished triad, and then finally we're back up to C at the top there. Now, if you wanted to make 4-note chords or 7th chords, all you would do is add an extra third on top of those. So, for example, on the C major, you'd add a 7th and you'd get C major 7th. Then you get D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7. Now the G major triad is going to turn into a G dominant chord here because it's a minor 7th and not a major 7th. Does that make sense? Because a third from D up to F, we skip the E here and go to F, gives you a G7 chord, not a G major. Then we've got A minor 7th there. And then look at this on the B, check this out. We've got B, D, and F. If we go a third above, we'll skip the G right here and play this A right there. And that gives us a B half diminished chord, a B minor 7 flat 5. Now why is this not still a diminished chord? Why is it not a diminished 7th? Because the seventh is not diminished. It's an A natural, it's a minor seventh right there. If you remember back to the chord module, in the last module, you remember that a diminished seventh was actually the same as a major sixth. So you'd end up with this. But that's taking notes that are outside of our C major key, right? Because that's an A flat right there. We definitely need an A natural. And that's it right there. So we end up with a B half diminished chord, not a fully diminished chord, when you add the fourth note onto each of these chords. Now what you've just created is called a chord scale. You've got a scale, in this case the C major scale, and you've built chords using notes from that scale. Pretty cool, right? If you're playing in C major, these 7 chords up here are the chords that you would be likely to expect when you're playing in that key. Now, all of these chords get assigned a number from 1 to 7. So C major is 1, D minor is 2, E minor is 3, blah, blah, etc., etc., etc. A lot of times using Roman numerals. Now have a look at the order of the chords here. You've got the first, fourth and fifth chords are major, the second, third and sixth chords are minor, and the seventh one is either a diminished triad or a half diminished seventh chord. Now this order of chords is the same for every single key. The 1 chord will always be major in a major key. The 2 chord will always be minor or a minor seventh in the major key. The 3 chord will always be minor. The 4 chord always major. The 5th chord either a dominant chord, fully like a dominant 7th chord, or just a major triad. The 6th chord will always be a minor or a minor 7th, and the 7th chord will always either be a diminished triad or a half diminished 7th chord. It doesn't change no matter what major key you're in. So what's the significance of this? Why is this important? Well, this is the thing that's going to help you learn songs in one key and then know it in every single key instantly and without even really trying. This is the really cool part. Here's how it works. Let's say you're playing a song in the key of C major and the chords are C, F, C and G. C major, F major, C major, G major. And let's say that the bass line just uses roots of chords, something like this. Let's say that's your bass line. Now imagine someone comes along and says, "Oh, hey, this isn't really suiting my voice. Can we change the key down to A flat major?" And you're like, "Oh, okay, I guess so. Let me figure it out real quick." Then that's where you use your chord scales to figure out exactly what chords you're going to play, what notes you're going to play, and everything like that. You can do this very, very easily. Let's look at our original chord progression. Now, we know we're in the key of C major, yep? So, in the key of C major, our C major up here is the 1 chord. So, no matter where you are, you know that C major is going to be the 1 chord. You're playing a 1 chord right here. Next, we've got an F major. Now, where is F major sitting up on the chord scale right here? You'll see it's chord number 4. So, we've got our 1 chord going to our 4 chord. And then, of course, we go back to C major, back to our 1. So that's the first 3 chords taken care of, the C, the F, and the second C. Now, where is the G on our chord scale up here? You'll find it's the 5th chord. So, it's 5. In terms of numbers, this chord progression is 1, 4, 1, 5. Makes sense, right? So if you know the chord progression is 1, 4, 1, 5, then you can play this chord progression, this bass line, this song in any key. Let's say we had to take it down to A flat. So we'll grab up our A flat major scale plus our chords, and then you'll easily be able to see exactly what chords to play, what notes to play. We know that our 1 chord is going to be A flat right there. Our 4 chord is going to be a D flat major. And of course, then we go back to our 1 chord, the A flat major. And then we go up to the 5 chord, which in A flat is E flat major. So I've just taken this bass line, transposed it to A flat using these chord scales, and you get this. Does that make sense? We've taken the whole thing and just transposed it directly using numbers. Rather than using individual chords, we're using the numbers. Do you see how useful this whole process can be? Rather than learning songs chord by chord, which is what a lot of people try and do, you're taking a step back and seeing the bigger picture of how the entire song fits together. I've found that this is easily the best way to learn new songs very, very quickly. You can take a step back and see how everything relates to each other, how the chords relate to each other, and how the chords relate to the key. That's the important part. That's what's going to help you learn songs super quickly, and if you want to transpose them, it's not going to be a problem for you. I definitely recommend that you try and start thinking in terms of numbers rather than chords. This is what's going to help you transpose instantly, and it's also going to help you speak the language of music to others. For example, I had a gig on the weekend, and there was a saxophone player on it, and he didn't know one particular song that we were playing. And he asked me, hey man, what are the chords? And rather than giving him the actual notes of the chords or telling the actual chords, I just said, all right, we're in C. The chord in the chord section, the chord progression in the A section is 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5. And he's like, okay, sweet. Then the bridge is 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, and then onto the 1 in the next A section. And he was fine with it. He knew exactly what I was talking about because we both understood the language. Now, I know this might sound a little bit complicated right now, but I guarantee that when you start thinking in this way, thinking in terms of the relationship between the chords and the relationship to the key, you'll have no troubles in instantly transposing any riff, any bass line, any lick, any song instantly. You'll have no troubles at all. And to make things easier, there's a cheat sheet underneath this lesson with all 12 major chord scales for you right there. Now, thinking this way, thinking in terms of numbers, it's part of the reason I was able to go from taking a very, very long time to learn a gig's worth of songs, probably about a whole week, to the point now where I can do it in a couple of hours. The other parts of the equation are knowing some very, very common recurring chord progressions that you see everywhere, and of course knowing how songs are structured and how songs are put together. And we'll talk about all that stuff very, very soon. So to recap, you learned all about your chord scales and how they can make changing keys for you super easy and how they can help you see the bigger picture and how all the chords relate to each other. You learned that each major key is built on a major scale, and each major scale has chords that are associated with it, and they follow a very, very predictable pattern of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. You also learned how to start thinking in terms of numbers rather than individual chords, and how this can help you transpose and change keys instantly and without even thinking about it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Luke McIntosh, and I will see you in the very next lesson.